Okay, and here we are doing another part. Today we will be finishing off what we started today, yesterday, which is the little display bar at the left side. If we press play and quickly start a wave, we'll see what it currently does. There we go, it displays everything, but what we will actually want is only to display the relevant information and to display all of the information that it should display. So, if we go into our game manager and open up where actually is it in the canvas? That's a good question. Where have we included this piece of code? And there we go, in the Matune display. So there we go. Here we have the panel, and what we have to do is just quickly drag over anything that's to its correct place. And we need to open that class in Visual Studios. There we go. For our active image, you just use the normal icon like is used in here. Where are we? UI panel. So our normal bottom is going to be the inactive, and active is going to be the highlighted. Price text upgrade. There you go. So damage. Yeah. So those are the settings for the tower, which are in here. So what we need to open is these guys. There we go. Damage. Where are we? Range and rate of fire. And the price. I don't think, do we have a place for price? Upgrade. No. So in the upgrade bar, we just need to add a text. Put it at the top and bottom. And call it price. Let me just see in the scene mode. It's a bit strange. Is there? Let's add a horizontal layout group. Just put it in the center like so. Okay, now. Why is it so big? Oh. There we go. Better. Actually, I'm just gonna put a numerical value straight away. Oh, what's the keyboard? Polish, go away. United Kingdom. Actually, let's put a dollar sign. Okay. And like everything else, we're gonna make it bold and gonna make it completely black for now. I think it's slightly too big. I'm gonna add another text above it, which is gonna be the upgrade text. So this will actually just say upgrade. So let's give them a name so it's not confusing. Text upgrade, and this will be text price. To the top. Okay, like so. And we'll do the exact same thing for a delete. Delete. There we go. It does the job for what we need. And now finally, I'm just gonna drag in the price. Rename this to delete. Later we'll change and add an actual icon for this section. But this is good enough for now. And now we can start coding in here. So what we actually need is two sets, the player interaction and doc information. So first we will set up the player interaction and then the doc information. So there we go. So both of our objects have a selectable. However, this is the one part that's going to be different. So the transform tag, and we'll call it tower because that's what our towers will be. And I'm going to copy this, but instead of display enemy, we will have display tower. Like so. Now there's a few other things that we have to do here. So when we display the enemy, we need to make sure that the correct tabs are set to active. So the tower extended panel has to be set to false. The basic panel has to be set to true. And of course, when we do our tower selection, we will do the reverse of that. Actually, we need both of them to be true rather than just one. We pass in the enemy, we get the health, the image, which is good. For the tower, though, we need to pass in the base tower. No, we need to pass in the tower. And that will pass in the current tower stats, because the current tower stats could be different than the overall stats. Okay. So now let's give this a try and see if the enemy part will work as intended. And then move on to doing all of the remaining ones for the tower. So now we have a slight issue. So what we do have to do is get hit.transform.get component tower like so. And let's see if it's going to work. So let's just start the wave. There we go. We get the correct display when we click on the enemy. And we get the correct display when we click on the tower. Let's try a different tower. Yeah, we get that, but we of course have to, each time we have to reset everything. That's something we are not doing just yet. So in the player interaction, if we make a new click, before we make the new click, we do have to deselect everything. What does disable docs do right now? It should disable this point first. We actually have to unselect the selected object first. That was previously selected, but it's not doing that, which allows us to select two towers at once. So that's a bug. So let's place two sets of towers, 1 and 2. Yeah. So what happens when we select one tower? Okay, so when we so selected object should be set to, let's actually serialize this so we see what we're doing. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Okay, so we've placed that one down. We select it, there we go. And this selects the tower. As we see, it's this tower. If we place a new tower, what it should do is it should automatically deselect, but it did. So, where are we? So on mouse select here, we also have to run a code that will disable our selection. Where are we? So we run select tower. So on select tower, what we actually have to do is go into player interaction. And then we have to run a little deselect script, which is going to be, where we go, the disable docs. Is it public or is it? No, it's not. So disabling docs deselects that. Again, our problem is with this. So we will also do if is not null. Then what we'll do is selected object.get component, and I believe, where are we? Where is? I believe this is what we need to do, but in reverse. So there should be a function already. Yeah, there we go, on the select. Run it like this. So disable docs, and with this, now when we create a new tower, it should automatically disable it. Hello, how are you doing? A person in the chat. Okay, so there you go. Now it gets disabled properly. So now we can go back to modifying the panel. Good, good. Me too. Ah. Okay. So now if we go back to our doc information, now we can start displaying all of the information for the tower. So now that we've passed through the tower, what we can do is we can set our damage, range, and rate of fire into a value. And that's just going to be equal to current tower dot damage. Actually, how do we display damage? So there we go. We actually need to add a little bit more. So make a space, and we'll duplicate this 3 times and just change it for all the remaining ones. So we need rate of fire, and we need range, like so. Oh, yeah. I haven't. I luckily graduated before the pandemic started, so I never got to experience the online classes. How is it spelled there? Right off. No, it seems like I need to make rate of fire and range public. So if we go into here, I'm just gonna, there we go, like so, and rate of fire, where is range? In here. And now, since we're only getting the value, there's no need to set it. There we go. And now we have access to rate of fire and range as well. Oh, what are you studying? Okay, with this, now all of the stats will display when we select our tower. There we go. So you have 10 damage, 2, and rate of fire. The rate of fire slightly goes out of bounds, so I'll quickly modify that. Should be. Yeah, should be better. And then next we will add a new feature. Oh, I said, what do you study? Ah. Uh, what are we looking at? Yeah, so now we'll add the fire modes. For that, we need to go into the tower. So so yesterday I've created find lowest health, and we also have furthest, which I haven't started, and find the closest. And those will be the. Oh, is it like so? Is that like a general college where you do everything, or is it something specific, like a specific subject? Because when I was in college, I did computer science. That's what mine was called. Okay, so to be able to switch between different types of attacks, well, there are several ways which we can do it. The easiest way to visualize it would be to create an enum. So I'll create private enum, and we're going to call it a firing mode. And we will have the closest target, furthest target, and lowest health target. So that will allow us targets to prioritize what we want to shoot when the enemies walk through their path. Oh, I see. So it's like a general college, but you pick out specific subjects, yeah? Interesting. Um, private firing mode, and we'll set it by default to mode of fire, to the closest target as the default one. Oh, I understand that. They didn't teach us anything either. Uh, Either learn it yourself or you don't learn anything. Okay, so with this done, what we can do is that based on the firing mode, which we can run off a switch case, which is what I'm going to do. So I'll create a new function. We're going to call it private void firing type. And what we're going to do here is a switch case, which will run off the. Actually, let's make an. It's fine. So what's going to happen here is we'll make a switch. Just going to. And we will type in every single one of these guys. So to make a switch case, we write case, and then what's it called? Firing mode, closest target, break, and I'll do that 2 more times. 1, 2, and then let's just make a default case. Wait, actually, no need. So how did we do it? Furthest target, and finally lowest health target, like so. Here we'll pass in which mode of fire we use, and this will run either, where are we? Find closest target, find furthest target, um, So, uh, well, I studied in England, so I guess college is usually after you finish secondary school, or some places call it high school. So that's your very first step of education, and then you go to, well, you can, college is one of the options where you can go college. So you're around 16 to 18 at that age, and then afterwards you can go to university. And university is usually 3 years, depending on the course you do, and then you can do 1 year of masters, and then finally between 3 to 5 years of PhD, which is your doctorate. Okay, so with this here, I'm calling find. So what this does is determines which mode of fire the tower will use, and now we have to make it so instead of running finding closest target and update, we'll actually just use the firing mode. Firing type. There we go, like so. And then somewhere else in the code, we just have to assign what the firing mode is. So right now, by default, we use the closest target. So it will only case through the lowest. But if we were, for example, to change it, which is what we plan on doing with these buttons, it will change it. Oh, okay. That's that sounds interesting. No, here there's three things you can do instead of college. One is apprenticeship, which is it's you have like 2 to 4 hours in the week where you study, but everything else is working towards that specific field. It's mainly for jobs like plumbing, electricians, uh, and various jobs like that. And then you would have A levels, which is, I guess, this usually is connected to the high school that you were in. They usually will have their own A levels. It's not always the case, but more than often it is. And the way this works is you basically pick several subjects and you just do those subjects, and that's it. And then college is in between of them. With college, you can actually do your A levels there as well, but it also offers another option, which is BTEC. And BTEC is a similar course to a similar thing to A levels, but instead of having three or maybe more different courses, you only have one, which is a which expands into broader things. For example, you can do just computer science, and that will of course cover maths, physics, various forms of programming, and anything related in that field. And that's what I did. And then universities are completely specialized, so you only do that one thing that you want to do. Yeah, makes sense. Okay. What was I doing? Yeah, firing mode. So to be able to set this using these guys, the clicks. So when we open the doc, we have a reference to the tower. So we need to save that reference privately. So we'll have a private tower, and in here I'll set it to tower is equal to current tower. There we go, like so. So that's the very first thing that will run through the code. And now this allows us to create a new function, which is just going to be called set firing mode. And this is what we will attach to our buttons. So this will change the mode of fire for the tower. So now that we have this, if we just go into each of our buttons, I'm just going to select all of them at once, and we will drag in the panel that has the script, doc information, and set firing mode. So the simplest way to do this is just to pass in. Isn't there a dark mode for Unity? Yeah, there is. Everything has a dark mode nowadays. I just don't use it. I actually do use dark mode on Discord. That's the only dark mode I ever used for anything. Oh, actually, the Visual Studios is dark mode as well. Interesting, because I don't remember setting it. I usually just don't bother. It never actually gets in my way of doing things. So I just leave it as it is. So how are your eyes? I do wear glasses. But I've been wearing them for quite some time now. 15 years, maybe a little bit more. Okay. Oh, that's right. Price is not set as well. So price we can pass very easily. So I'm just quickly going to do that so it doesn't display errors. Okay, quick actions. I believe that's not public. So it actually is. Never mind. So to set the price, where are we? We go back to the doc information, copy this, change this to price text. We don't need this here at all, but we'll just do and put a dollar sign at the end. And what we'll do is tower, stats, and price. Can I not? Is there no? Buyout cost. There we go. No, because this is for upgrades. We have not programmed upgrades just yet. Okay, just the buyout price will do for now. So it doesn't do anything. So it actually does something. Okay, now with this done, I need to actually store every single button, which is what I haven't done yet. So we will create a serializable field of transforms, and that's going to be an array. Or should I make it of images? Nah, make it of images. And this is going to be the firing mode buttons. Because we will have to default all of the buttons to their inactive state and then activate the correct one upon clicking on the icon. But let's finish setting the firing mode. So the easiest way, since our firing mode uses where are we? It uses an enum. Enum has their own value. Okay. Well, currently it's not set at all. So what currently happens is, let me show you. Currently, if we place down the tower and press play, it will fire the most basic shooting, which is what we originally had before this part, which is the finding the closest target. So what finding the closest target does is it basically draws a collider in the range and checks for every enemy on that specific layer. And if they are, it adds it to that list. And then what I do is I loop through every single one of them, checking which one is the closest. So it's very simple. I first set my float to infinite because that's the highest range we can have. And then anything that is smaller than infinity gets saved. And if something's bigger than that, it gets ignored all the way till we loop through the end. I follow the similar principle for setting health, and I'll do the reversal of that later for the furthest away. And what I want to do is I want to have an option for the user to prioritize which tower fires at which target by the click of a button. So today I've created an enum, which is basically number 0, 1, and 2. That will let me switch with a button click to which ones we are going to go through. So as we see here, closest target represents 0, 1, 2, and they represent the same within the enum, but that's irrelevant for now. So what I'll do in the docking information is I'll pass through a number, integer, and that's going to be firing mode num, like so. And what that does is it allows me to set a number to that specific button. So there we go. Where are we? So if we remember at the tower, these were already assigned to numbers, so that's 0, 1, and 2 here. So all I'll have to do is just duplicate those numbers here. And where are we? Here. 1 and 2. So that means that every time I click on that button, it will allow us to switch our case to that specific number. Where are we? In the doc information. So now all I have to do is get our reference of our tower, and I just have to set our firing mode. So for that, I'll make a new public void function, and that'll be set tower, set firing mode. Sets a firing mode of the tower. After I finish with this series, I will be uploading an entire entire project to GitHub. So if you would actually want, this will be fully available. Before I upload it, I'll make sure everything is properly commented, because I sometimes forget to comment as I talk over it. But it will be 100% commented, and it's going to be all fully available on GitHub. I don't use any assets for these projects at all. It's all used within Unity. Well, no assets. I mean, I do use Paint, but so it looks. So it's easier to distinguish some facts, but that's as far as the project goes. It all uses basic geometry that's available within the engine. Mainly because I'm not an artist and I don't want to spend hours making little 3D models, because it's not within my skill set, and I think it's unnecessary anyway, because I'm only prototyping. But this is something that someone can go off if they want later on. So now that we have this connection, we can just call the set firing mode, and we will basically just pass this number through again. So integer is going to be the firing mode number. And this is all we need to set which mode of fire our tower will shoot from. Now, there's two ways in which we can do it. We can, well, the hard code, the hardest to code part would be, I can just make an if statement, and then we just call that, and I could do that 3 times to set the mode, and that will always switch between these. But I believe there is a way to cast enums in Unity, although I don't remember how to do it. So I'll try to cast it first. If that doesn't work, I will. I'll just use the if statement, and then later on after work, I'll have a look at the casting. Yes, 0, 1, and 2, because this is what an enum essentially is. Enum is like a list of numbers, but you can give them a name, but they still correspond to a value. So like it's easier to, I guess. So think about it that way. Let's just say we have we need 10 different values, right? If we were to put them in a switch case, and we would have value 0, 1, 2, yeah, like an array. If we were to have a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, it's quite confusing, right? So if you put it in an enum with a name, it's easier for someone who reads it to understand what it is, but it still uses those numbers in its core. It's just a way of making it simpler to look at. So let's figure out how to cast it. Is equal to, and then can I do this? No, I can't. Interesting. Oh, what if I change this around? Oh, look at that. It is. uh, uh, yeah, this is literally how you set it up. There is no more to it. This is this piece of code right here. Okay, so now that we have this, let's just make sure we set up the selection. And with actually, this already works. So let's give this a try. Let's place 2 separate towers. Click on the tower, and then select the lowest health. There we go. It's kind of hard to actually, yeah. It's hard to tell which one they're doing because there is not a lot of difference between range. So let's buff up the range a little bit on the tower. Where are we? Which tower were we using? This one. Scriptable objects folder. Okay, so let's change range to something ridiculous. Yeah, programming's easy. So let's place a tower, just one tower, and do some shooting. Click it. So by default, we're shooting the closest target. Let's change it to, ooh. Oh, there we go. It shoots the further away target because it's the target that was on lowest health rather than the one on the closest, which is exactly what we wanted to do. Target of the tower you select. Yes, that's actually what I'll do next. Because right now we can't tell what we're doing, but highlight the target of the tower oh, you mean like, so I click on the tower and then it shows us which it targets? Yeah, we could do that, but there's multiple towers and that would get slightly confusing. Oh, of the tower you select only. Yeah, that's actually not hard to do. I can add it to a thing because I only have 1 hour to do this every day in the morning before I have to go to work. But I can add this for tomorrow if you want, no problem. Because I just want to finish off with what I'm doing today. But for tomorrow, I can add it to my list to do. Because that should take about 10 to 15 minutes to do what you've asked for. Um, okay. See, when I talk, I forget what I was doing. Oh, yeah. We need to make sure that the displayed one is highlighted. So what I'll do here is I'll create a private function, and we're going to call it reset active buttons. And this will do exactly what it sounds like. It'll just select what time do you stream? So I stream Monday to Friday from 10 and 11 my time. It's currently 10:45. And then, yeah, it's usually an hour stream. I can be 10 to 15 minutes late depending, but this is what I do. But that's usually where I have time. I might not be able to stream on a specific day because my work starts earlier, but usually this 1 hour, I always have time to program. I might do an extra programming stream randomly when I get an extra time, like if I'm not working on a specific day. But this 10 to 11 is a slot I always try to aim for. Okay, so now that I can reset the active buttons, I will loop through every single button using a for loop. And since they're of a type image, I can access each of their sprite and I can set it to our inactive image, like so. And this will make sure that all of our images at the start of the tower display are reset to an inactive button. And of course, that also means that we then have to set an active button straight away after. So actually, we have to do this after we enable the panel because it will not change it properly otherwise. I am from Poland, but I live in England. Okay. So now that we have this, we can get our active one. Actually, have we dragged the references in? Where are we? No, we haven't. So let's grab every button and drag it in, like so. And now what I can do is, based on our where are we? So I'll do is I'll do this, but instead of I, we will actually get our current tower stats dot, and what we need to do is get our firing mode. I don't think this is gonna let me get a setter. Oh. Aha, I thought so. So this is where we have slight problem. No way to make enums private. They're either public or not. So I'm just gonna set it to public. There we go. And we're gonna cast it as an integer. And what that now does is, how do you make something line on I loop? I don't understand that question. Could you rephrase it slightly? How do I automatically generate the loops? Is what you mean? Oh yeah. So that's a for loop. So in Visual Studios, if you just type in for and press tab twice, it automatically generates the variable. Yeah. Yeah. You mean like so? Yes. So yeah, you can just type in for and press tab twice, and I'll create an automatic for loop. But what for loop has is it has three parameters. First is a variable. Yes, it's called a for loop. There's so out of your loops you have your for loop, you have your while loop, you have your do while loop, you have for each. Those are the most common ones that I can think of off the top of my head. And yeah. The I doesn't have to be on I. It's up to you what you set it as. It's just a variable. It could have a proper name. It could be the reason why it's I is because it's what it started off, what the people used when it started off as, and what it stuck as. Because I stands for iteration. So how does the while loop work? It works the exact same way as the for loop, to be honest. So let's just say we have. So let me make this for loop in a while loop. So integer I while al is smaller than firing mode bottoms dot length, and then I plus plus other code here. There you go. So this would be the exact same use of a while loop. Let's just change it to T so it doesn't give me an error. There you go. Exact same example of a while loop. The only difference, so there's also the do while loop, right? Which is essentially the same thing. The only difference is that a while loop ends at the start, but a do while ends at the end. So if you think of the loop going round and round, a while loop, yeah. So we first start the loop, it runs this code, and then it goes back to the top. A while loop ends here at the start, and then it skips over. But a do while will go to the end at the bottom. So it will not go back to the top at the end. It will end at the bottom and then keep going when it's out of the loop. Yeah. So sometimes it's easier to use different loops for different purposes. Like the reason why I wouldn't use a while loop for this is because I need to add the iteration for these every time. So it's easier to put it in a for loop than manually have to add t at the end for this. What I like using while loops for is for things that have a true or false statement. So if I want to run a piece of, let me think, if I have a code that actually has a while loop. Oh yeah, my the wave spawner does it? No. There we go. So this is my well, it's not completed yet, but this is the basic wave spawner that exists right now. This is used for spawning in waves, but it also has a time delay between. I use a while. I guess this is not the best example of using a while loop, but yeah, it really doesn't matter. It's just sometimes more convenient to use one than the other, I would say. Uh, the one that stands out of them the most is the for each loop. Let me just go over that one real quick. So what for each does is it takes in a variable and then out in something. So we could do for each image in a loop of images, which would be that. So it does the exact same thing, but this it grabs it by the amount of the list. It grabs it by the type rather than the length. But yeah, every loop does the same thing. It loops through till the end of the loop. That's it. For loops are the most commonly used ones, and they're the quickest to write as well. Okay. Now let's see if what I did works, because that's the best thing about everything. Yeah, there we go. So now, as you see, the closest target is highlighted. Now, if I change it to that, it currently doesn't do anything, but there we go. If we switch back, it goes back to that one. So what we actually need to do is we need to run this code here as well. But we can just pass in the number of that, like so. And now we have in another script. Is it possible to run script in another script? What do you mean by a script in another script? Do you mean just reference it through? No, never copy. You never want to copy code. You want to reuse the code as much as you want. Um, copying code is so. What you're probably speaking of is, have you heard of the term polymorphism? Hmm. See, okay. Anyway, I don't have a lot of time left, so I'll try to explain this to you while I'm at it. Let me just check if this works. It does, but it doesn't disable the old one. So to fix that real quick, all we have to do is, where are we? Don't need this piece of code. Don't need this piece of code. We need to run reset active actions every time we interact with the bottom. Okay, so I guess there are three main rules to object-oriented programming. You have the whatever you have inheritance. Well, let's ignore the third one because I forgot what it's called. Inheritance and polymorphism are the two ones that I want to speak of. So I actually use it here, so I can show you straight away. Where are we? The tower script. So I have 4 sets of different towers, right? Let me open each of these scripts. Now, this is where all of my general code for the tower is in, right? And I have other towers that do similar stuff, but not exactly the same things. For example, the freezing tower, right? I want my freezing tower to do just about the same thing as the normal tower. So let me show you both towers so you can see the difference between them. So this is the basic tower, and this is the freezing tower. Um, Aside from the fact that they look differently, they also do different things. So the freezing tower has a ray like so, and it freezes and slows down the enemies, whereas the other one just makes fire. And of course, the freezing tower doesn't have any particle effects, as you see. Oh, I forgot to. Let me just quickly reset the range because I'll probably stay for a long time. There we go. Right. So what I did was what I did was I inherited from the class. So as you see here, when you have a class, usually when you make a class, there's nothing there. It's just the name of your class and that's it. In Unity, you usually inherit from mono behavior. And what is mono behavior is a different class that has a lot of functions. But what it also allows you to do is it allows you to drag your class to another object within the Unity scene, right? But inheritance doesn't have to be, there is more to inheritance than just the mono behavior. So for our freeze tower, since I wanted it to have just about everything the same from tower, I inherited it from the tower, and I did that for every single of these towers. Now, so that's inheritance. It allows you to use stuff from the other class for this class. It will have access to everything that the other one does. So, for example, a cannon tower right now is a complete copy of the tower code, but I didn't add any extra code myself to it. Right? And then polymorphism is basically this keyword here, override, and another keyword which is used, which I will find in a second, is virtual. So virtual, what it does is it allows my inherited classes to override that function. So what shooting does is it checks if the target is not null, it checks if it's active, and then it basically does the reload. So it checks how quickly it can fire, and then it plays the animation for firing, creates the particle, creates the bullet, and then shoots the bullet out, right? But the freezing tower doesn't want to do that. The freezing tower uses a line that is drawn from the tower to the enemy. So I make the shooting function a virtual function, and then I override that function in another class, which is the freeze tower. So there I just run. So this is all that freeze tower needed to run its own code for freezing, but this is all the code that is required for a generic bullet. So we don't need that. Another thing I could have done is just create another function here, which would be public void freeze tower shoot. But why would I do that? Why would I make more functions in this one class to do different types of towers? What if I want to have 50 different towers, right? I don't want to have 50 functions for every firing mode because then the code gets big and messy. So this is why I did that. And then if we look at Cannon Tower, well, currently I don't have any plans for the Cannon Tower to do any other function than the basic tower. So I still override it because I still want to have my individual tower class for later. But I use the base dot shoot. So what this does is it uses the base functionality of the tower only, and then if I want, I can actually add more code on top of that, which is something I also done for the bullet. So I can show you how that works. If we go into the, where are we? Where is the bullets here? So with the bullets, did I do it for the bullets or did I not? Let's look for, oh, there we go. So here we have a disabling of the bullet. So what disabling of the bullet does is it just makes the bullet invisible. With override, you can change the stats from the tower it was inherited from. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can change the stats from anywhere, really, but you can change the inherited stats without a problem. All you would have to do is, but if you want to change variables that are from the main class, they have to be public. If they're private, so inherited variables will be used, but you can't change them unless they're actually set as public. So Yeah, they can be used, but they can't be changed unless they're public. So you would actually have to either make the variable public or make a getter and setter. So this is what you would need. So if you want to change damage, you need um, this part of getting and setting. But yeah, so as I was talking about the bullet, disable bullet literally just disables the bullet. But for the cannon bullet, I had slightly. So the cannon bullet also has a particle. So let me show you how it looks so you know what the particle does, the cannon does. So the cannon tower shoots out a bullet in a parabola, and then it plays a particle at the end before the bullet gets disabled. So of course, I don't want every bullet to have this particle. I only want this specific one to have it. So I used so I used polymorphism to override that specific function of disabling the bullet, and then I called the base at the end to be able to use both. What do you mean by global variables? Oh, you mean static variables? Yeah, um, that's a good question. Would the static? I actually don't know off the top of my head. It's we can, but I wouldn't use static variables because the, having static variables for multiple towers wouldn't be a good idea. But I can actually quickly check. So private void, private integer test damage, and let's give it a static variable. Let's set that to 10. See, but the thing is that static variables by default would have to be public to have a full access. If you have a public int in tower, can you still use the int towers that inherit from tower? Yeah, you can. If it's public, it will always work. It's a case of the protection. So if it's public, it works. But that's why you use. That's why you always use getters and setters. Uh, it's What's the difference between public and private? Public can be accessed by another class. Private cannot. That's the simplest example of it. So if I don't know if so this if I want to access this variable from this class, I can because it's public. But if I change it to private, I can't because it's private. It's as simple as that. That's why you always want to make everything private unless it has to be public. So anything that will not be used by a different class is private. Anything that you use in a different class is public. There is also protected, but yeah, I don't have time to go through that actually. I have 2 minutes before I have to go. So if you have any last questions, and we'll call it quit for today. We actually did everything I wanted for today. I'll write down now real quick what you wanted me to do so I don't forget. Where is my display a selected enemy by the tower when tower is selected. There we go. I wrote that down, and I can do that for next one. Okay, then thanks for coming in, man. Have a good day. And this is it for me for today. Thanks.